The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled yesterday to uphold some key elements of a federal district court's order requiring the FDA to restore clinical safeguards for chemical abortion drugs. Most notably, abortion providers are no longer allowed to send chemical abortion drugs through the mail. That's huge. Also, the gestational age of a baby for which a mother can take the chemical drugs has been reduced from 10 weeks down to 7. Joining me now to discuss this is Lathan Watts. He's the Vice President of Public Affairs with ADF, the Alliance Defending Freedom, which is the organization that brought the initial lawsuit against the FDA. Lathan, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Thanks for having me.
Well, listen, let's just begin with your overall reaction to the court's ruling last night.
Well, it's really a win for health and safety for women and girls in this country. As you mentioned, the Fifth Circuit upheld Judge Kaczmarek's order in part, the part of it that restored those safeguards. And that is very important because the FDA had removed those in order to basically create a nationwide mail order abortion market. And those safeguards, they're crucial to protect the health and the safety of the women and the girls who would be taking these pills. So it is a victory. It is a step in the right direction. And we're grateful for that win.
Well, it really is a great step in the right direction. And, I think it's fair to say, or maybe I should ask, is it fair to say that, there's probably some saying that this decision didn't go far enough, but it is an enormous step in the right direction. But is it fair to say that the FDA's actions that have been going on for some 20 years covering up were illegal and unlawful throughout this whole process?
Yes. I mean, our clients, the doctors that we represent, filed a citizen petition against approval of this drug all the way back in 2000. And really, our clients are the only parties to this litigation who have followed both the science and the law from day one. The FDA declared pregnancy an illness in order to approve mifepristone in the first place, and then stonewalled our clients for 14 years when by law they were required to respond to our client's petition within 180 days. And then after 14 years, on the same day they finally responded, that's when they lifted all of these safety measures that had been put in place originally. And so this litigation is certainly about bringing health and safety back to the women and the girls who would be prescribed this drug, but it's also about bringing accountability to the FDA. These unelected bureaucrats have now acted with impunity through 5 different presidents. And it is high time that some accountability be brought to that agency. And we're grateful that the Fifth Circuit has taken a big step in the right direction.
Yeah, it's just absolutely unbelievable to me that it's taken this long. I mean, to have a federal agency deliberately hide and cover up and refuse to comply with the law is phenomenal to me. Yesterday, the Biden administration's task force on reproductive health access had another meeting. I believe it was their 3rd meeting, and Vice President Kamala Harris was there. I want to play a clip of what she said and get your reaction to this.
We have, in effect, a situation where politicians and politics have driven lawyers to go to a court of law where a judge who is not a medical professional is making a decision to undo the ruling over 20 years ago of the FDA.
I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, let's start. I think it's fair to say she's probably not a healthcare professional herself. But the problem was 20 years ago, what they did was illegal. I mean, this is stunning. What your reaction to this?
Yeah, exactly. And you don't have to be a medical professional. Anyone who has sat through a high school biology class knows that pregnancy is not an illness. It is a natural condition of humanity. And so, yes, it has been 20 years. It would not have taken 20 years had the FDA complied with its own rules. But because they didn't, it has taken us this long to get the case to court and finally bring some accountability to the FDA.
Yeah, and she also certainly, and this implication is not just coming from her, but the argument is that the decision by the Fifth Circuit was all politically driven. It's just the opposite, it seems to me, even 20 years ago. The reason they ignored the law, the FDA, was for political reasons. They tried to push this thing because that was the agenda of the left, to make abortions more accessible. So the whole argument that this decision was politically driven is absolutely upside down, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, this decision in our litigation from day one has been about maintaining the rule of law, holding the FDA accountable for its own actions when it violates its own rules. The FDA, all the way back in 2000, as we've said, abandoned its mission to protect the health and safety of consumers in favor of advancing a political agenda to create a mail order abortion regime in this country. And had they complied with their own rules, this litigation would have been brought much sooner, and this could have been resolved years ago, but they didn't. And so that's why we're here today.
Well, I think that's a great point. I mean, obviously, one of the big reasons the FDA exists is for safety. And they did not even do the research on the safetiness of this drug, at least not in any kind of thorough fashion. Is that correct?
That's correct. And our clients, the doctors who have to deal with the women who then suffer complications of this drug, they're the ones who have been bringing the actual evidence, following the actual science of the complications that can happen when women take this drug. And by removing the safety precautions, by reducing the doctor visits from 3 to 1, removing the in-person requirement, allowing it to be done over the phone or online, you cannot screen for an ectopic pregnancy over the phone. You cannot check to see if the gestational age is 7 weeks, which is the condition that this drug is supposed to be prescribed for. And if it's taken beyond that, the risks to the woman taking it go up exponentially. And it should not be. It's illegal, and it was always illegal to ship this drug through the mail. Well, and so thankfully, the Fifth Circuit upheld Judge Casamaret's order on that.
Yeah, those are some great points there. What about this issue regarding the statute of limitations for the FDA's approval of these drugs? Evidently, it ended 6 months ago. Explain that.
Well, that's really the one part of Judge Casamaret's order that the Fifth Circuit didn't uphold. So the FDA, the Biden administration has already said they're going to appeal the Fifth Circuit's decision to the Supreme Court. We'll have to see if that is part of any ruling that comes from the Supreme Court or not, and then we'll determine the best course of action after that.
Well, another part of this, and I know our time's about to run out on us here. We've got about a minute or so, but some members of Congress have actually been calling for the FDA to ignore this whole ruling altogether, which just sets an incredibly dangerous precedent for one branch of government to ignore another branch of government simply for political reasons or for whatever. How dangerous is that thought process?
Well, anything that undermines the rule of law in this country is a danger to freedom in this country, because freedom is predicated upon the rule of law. And it's particularly egregious when those in government are the ones advocating for ignoring the rule of law. It sets up a very dangerous dynamic in our country. It widens the divide between the governing and the governed when the everyday citizen doesn't get to pick and choose which laws they're going to follow and which ones they're going to ignore. And no one in government should be able to do the same, which is basically what the FDA has done for 20 years now, which is why this litigation is so necessary.
Lathan Watts with ADF, thank you so much for the incredible work y'all have done, and thank you for joining us on Washington Watch this evening.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.